Comrade Mvelase. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And once again, we are very grateful that you have taken time to join us here today. The ANC KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Executive Committee held an extraordinary session from the 11th to the 12th of August 2019. The meeting focused extensively on a discussion and reflected in greater detail on the question of revolutionary morality, ethics, and leadership integrity, and a comprehensive assessment of the state of local government in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. The Provincial Executive Committee reaffirmed the centrality of the quality of leadership and a commitment to the time-tested values of the African National Congress as a leader of the National Democratic Revolution. The PEC acknowledged that in any revolution, the leadership must endeavor to be and be seen to be beyond reproach in their public and private lives, and therefore determine the standard for society to follow. The Provincial Executive Committee went down memory lane, recalling how the African National Congress has, over the past several decades, united South Africans, both black and white, on the basis of firm convictions that enable the South Africans to struggle for their own collective interest. It is a matter of grave concern that the period since 1994, following our ascendance to the state echelons, has unfortunately exposed the movement and its leadership to conditions that are alien, but also completely at variance with its revolutionary, tried and tested traditions. In this regard, the Provincial Executive Committee called on each and every member of the African National Congress in KwaZulu-Natal to remain steadfast to the historic mission of our movement and never be tempted to surrender to the setbacks of the moment. As members of the ANC, we must always activate our desire and the commitment to be loyal to the value system of our movement and undertake our historic mandate to build a better life for all our people, and do so with a great sense of sincerity and honesty. The discussion on revolutionary morality, ethics, and leadership integrity reactivated our determination to remain bold and courageous about the righteousness of our cause to build a national democratic society. We emerged from the extraordinary session of the Provincial Executive Committee renewed and more determined to be revolutionaries who are sincere and honest, who always sought to learn and to know the truth, who are committed to stand on the ground solidly in support of what we believe resonate with honest and considered to be in the best interest of the masses of our people we represent. On the assessment of local government, the primary objective of the extraordinary meeting of the Provincial Executive Committee, as was previously communicated to the public, was to receive and consider a detailed report presented by the Provincial Working Committee on the state of local government in KwaZulu-Natal. Over the past few months leading to the last national general elections, many of our people expressed deep-seated concerns about the state and the quality of service delivery provided by some of our municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal. These concerns range from issues such as water provision, road infrastructure, housing, refuse removal, and of course, allegations pertaining to matters of corruption, of fraud and corruption. The African National Congress Provincial Executive Committee heard and carefully listened to the concerns of our people and made a commitment to address all perennial weaknesses and refocus all municipalities to serve the best interest of the people of KwaZulu-Natal. In dealing with these very valid and justified concerns from our own people, the ANC Provincial Working Committee held a week-long meeting with all municipalities led by the African National Congress to painstakingly deal with each and every concern raised by our people in relation to each and every municipality led by the ANC. During this long week assessment of our municipality, a detailed and deeply involved assessment led by the Provincial Working Committee made the following observations. Firstly, that in certain municipalities there are serious challenges with regard to capacity to raise sufficient revenue due to poor systems and lack of proper planning. Secondly, the inability to make use of various municipal grants intended to complement municipal revenue in order to speed up service delivery due to poor planning and a lack of coordination. Thirdly, that the use of Section 32 and 36 for purposes of procurement in a manner that is not consistent with the conditions set by the Provincial Treasury and therefore inconsistent with the current legal regime of our country. Fourthly, that there is a sustained pattern of wrongdoings and wrong decisions taken in certain municipalities with no consequence management applied against those acting outside the ambit of the law and therefore in some instances in a manner that is unethical. Inability to comply with the requirements set up by the Auditor General and articulated some of them through what is called the Municipal Financial Management Act, which leads to massive litigations that ultimately divert resources meant for service delivery and very scarce resources for that matter to be used in order to deal with litigations and legal bills. Inability to run a decent, reliable, and effective billing system which provides accurate information and the capability to correct all mistakes and weaknesses without unduly penalizing ratepayers. However, the PCO was also humbled and prided itself with the great work being done and the performance of some of our municipalities, which are led by the African National Congress. That it is not all doom and gloom. There are municipalities where the organization, the leadership deployed by the ANC is doing exceptionally well. The Provincial Executive Committee studied the report of the Provincial Working Committee and agreed that urgent steps need to be taken to improve the functionality of various municipalities in our province. The PEC directed the provincial government to assist with the capacitation of officials in various municipalities in order for them to live up to the expectations of our people. The PEC also agreed that the continuous and sustained decline of the quality of service delivery in our biggest two cities of eThekwini Metropolitan and Msunduzi Local Municipality require an urgent attention. The PEC reaffirmed the correctness of the decision it took a few months ago, wherein it called for the provincial government to place Msunduzi Local Municipality under administration. In this regard, the Provincial Executive Committee also decided that all ANC members who are serving as ESCO members of eThekwini and Msunduzi local municipalities, respectively, should with immediate effect be redeployed. The PEC mandated the Provincial Working Committee to working through the officials to ensure that all vacancies occasioned by these decisions are filled within 7 days from today. The Provincial Executive Committee also directed the Provincial Working Committee to ensure that vacancies occasioned by deployment of some of our comrades to the provincial and national legislatures are equally filled within the same period of 7 days from today. Because all of these were waiting for us to conclude the assessment so that we're in a better position to know who should go where and whether or not we should just fill one vacancy or there is a need for us to have some kind of an overhaul in order to speed up and enhance the level of service delivery. We're very convinced, we're convinced that the absence of change of leadership, we're convinced that the absence of change of leadership in some of these municipalities is certainly a prescription for inability, and if it remains unattended, will tarnish the confidence and the image of the ANC as the preeminent leader of the National Democratic Revolution. On the support for President Cyril Ramaphosa, the Provincial Executive Committee has been following developments and challenges facing the African National Congress in general and the President of our movement in particular. The PEC is deeply concerned about what appears to be a sustained public assault on the name and the reputation of the President, which to a larger extent is intended and ultimately is directed to weakening the organization as a whole. There is a clear desire to deflect the focus of the President from the historic task of leading our people towards a national democratic society, which we believe the President, working with all of us, must ensure that such an attempt is resisted and ultimately defeated. It is perfectly obvious that what lies at the base of this offensive against the President is a clear objective to divide and ultimately displace the African National Congress as the leader of our people and the leader of the National Democratic Society. The PEC is unanimous in its firm view that the ANC President must find solace on the support from all structures and members of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal during these trying times. We are fully conscious of the fact that the President, as a head of state, has an obligation to uphold the Constitution of the Republic and all its laws, and to act as a true representative and the leader of all South Africans. Of greatest significance in this regard is the fact that the President has consistently acted within the parameters of the law in dealing with the ongoing challenges, which we do appreciate. The PEC calls on the National Executive Committee of our movement to remain steadfastly united in dealing with the prevailing challenges and always act in the best interest of the National Democratic Revolution. On the outcomes of the recent by-elections, the PEC paid homage to all ANC volunteers and supporters and the people of KwaZulu-Natal in general for a decisive victory in the recent by-elections that have taken place in eThekwini, Kokstad, and more importantly, at Umsundu's local municipality, where the ANC won Ward 30, which was previously under the Democratic Alliance. The victory of our movement in Ward 30 and a significant increase in the support base of the ANC in Ward 28 of Pietermaritzburg communicated a clear and unambiguous message that the former DA councillors who resigned on the eve of elections and joined the African National Congress acted in a manner that was consistent with the views of the overwhelming majority of our people who reside in their respective wards. The increase in the support communicated a message that the decision taken by the comrades who joined the ANC resonated quite deeply with the society where they stay. On the message of condolences, the PEC received the most painful news of the passing away of young people and girls in particular in a tragic car accident on their way from their preparations for what is called Siyaya Emhlangeni activities. We wish to convey our deepest and sincere condolences to the families, friends and relatives of the departed souls. As the preeminent and historic representative of the great masses of our people, both black and white, the ANC will continue in its quest to ensure that government effectively and efficiently serves the interest of our people. We emerge from the extraordinary session of the Provincial Executive Committee of our movement fully conscious and acutely aware that the leader of the National Democratic Revolution is expected to climb the tallest tree, to be exemplary, and to provide what is called a direction at all material times. The task to overcome the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality calls for a leadership that is united, exhibiting the quality of being the prolific messenger of hope and the greatest people's aspirations. The PEC believes that we are posed as a province of KwaZulu-Natal and in a better position to shape the direction of our course and to influence the direction of our movement in the country as a whole in order to forge unity and consolidate the work of building a national democratic society. Thank you very much, Comrade Mvelas.
No, thanks very much, no Pala. The message is very clear. Let me then allow you to pose questions. You are number one. You have number one. Makosin, number two. You strategically sit there, so you're always either number one or number two all the time. And then any other. Okay, you are number three. And then you are number four. And then number five. We will know our culture, we introduce ourselves. And then number six, SAPC. Number seven. Yeah. For now, there are Zandile Zozan. Then let's start with number one. Introduce yourself, yes.
My name is Koskone Duma from Eyewitness News. My question is, now that you know that the people who have been redeployed will be replaced within the next 7 days, what criteria will be used, and how can we keep track of that process?
Okay, is that all?
Yes.
Okay, but Makosin?
What's Makosin SABC? The PEC has done a diagnosis on the state of the municipalities under the ANC control. What did you find to be wrong in eThekwini? And secondly, going to the special PEC meeting, the PEC we were told that they were going to discuss the report about the fate of the mayor of eThekwini pertaining to the case that she is facing. What happened to that report? Did you put it aside and then focus on this assessment of the municipalities and took a decision based on the assessment?
Thank you very much. Number three.
System from Independent Media. One question. We do know that eThekwini will be having a regional conference towards the end of the year. Now, will the person whom we are going to appoint now stay in power up until 2021, or he or she would have to vacate that office immediately after the regional conference?
Okay, that one is very easy. Yes, let's get number four.
Harry Harper, Mail and Guardian. Two questions. For now, then, who runs Durban and Maritzburg until those appointments are made? And then, what happens with Newcastle? What happens with the decision around the mayor of Newcastle? His situation is quite similar to the mayor of
Okay, thank you. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and also from Newfriend. You talked about revolutionary morality. And in 2013, Zandile Gumede, her report into issues that in the drawing of a ward councillor list fingered Zandile Gumede in Ward 58 and suggested that she be removed and the process be redone. And I'm quoting from the report. She said that there were conflicts revolving around the ward councillor. That's the mayor.
Sorry, for which ward?
This is Zandile Gumede.
Okay.
Yeah. This is in 2013. But the ANC seems to have not done anything at the time. Is this a consequence of that inertia from 2013 that we've seen now? What steps do you think can be taken to kind of change this what appears to be a rot, what appears to be a threat on revolutionary morality and ethics in the ANC?
Okay.
From the witness, I just want to find out, there are those within the ANC who are of the view that people who are being removed are being paid because they were not in the same sled as the current provincial leadership when the ANC went to the recent provincial conference. I just want to find your response.
All right. So, and
mine is just, I don't know, no, but mine is just clarity. So they're going to be leaving here, they're going to be redeployed. if you're not happy with their performance in the positions that they held, where are you going to redeploy them to? How, if they're not good now, how are they going to get better in those positions? And I see you also speak about, I think, unless I'm wrong, you also speak about the provincial, possibly redeploying them to the provincial and the national legislatures. That would mean they might have to do some shuffling around.
Okay, you covered. All right, I think that's the end of the first round. It was too fast for it to be complete. And then let me give it to the Secretary of the Province then to deal with the questions. No problem.
Well, thank you very much for these many questions, which I'm quite certain you are asking not only on your behalf, but equally on behalf of our people who are aware that you'll have an interaction with us and they will be interested to know our attitude and answers on a variety of issues. We appreciate that, and I think many of our people are excited that they have an opportunity to engage with us through you. What will be the criteria? There is a deployment policy in the African National Congress. The first basic requirement is that you must be a member of the ANC. You must understand the policies of the ANC. You must have a sense of how governance work and how government work. It may very well be that as an additional advantage, you should be a comrade who was once at some point, or you are a councillor. Or if not a councillor, but you serve in another sphere of government, so you have acquired the necessary skills and exposure to how governance work. And therefore you have that potential and ability to help the organization to steer the municipality to a direction that is desirable not only to the ANC, to the people of eThekwini and the people of Mfumsunduzi. So broadly, that is what we look at when we must determine the next deployment. We say, who are the comrades in this area? What do they possess? Who can we choose? And what kind of intervention we need? You see, the work we did on the assessment has informed us about the depth of the challenge, the nature of the challenge, its character, and its origins. So when we make a deployment, our intention would be to place comrades according to that expectation that they will live up to the task of turning around municipalities that are in distress and are in difficulties. What is wrong with eThekwini? Hey, look, without really singling out what is wrong in eThekwini, if you follow the statement of the ANC, one of the things that it says, which we know is quite a very concerning issue to the citizens and the ratepayers of eThekwini, is how are we managing the billing system in eThekwini? The way we have managed the billing system in eThekwini is a challenge. And the provincial leadership of the ANC, when we were involved in the campaign and even post the campaign, that matter has been one of the issues that has been on our face, on our doorstep all the time. That people are saying, at times we are required and expected to pay much more than what we've used. And we believe that there is a degree of injustice in that and it needs to be attended. That's one challenge that we know is at the face of everybody. The second challenge that is at the face of everybody is the inability of the city to attend to the question of refuse removal. You know, the cleanliness of our city, the ability to ensure that townships are conducive for human habitation, for human settlement, and for human consumption. We need to deal with that issue. It's one of the issues that we believe that is a major challenge that needs to be attended to. The third issue that I can mention briefly, you will know that at some point we had to appoint what we call a war room. We set up a war room in eThekwini which was led and still led by Comrade Provincial Chairperson of the ANC, Comrade Mike Mabuyakul. Fundamentally, why we set up that war room, we were concerned that there were grants that were not going to be utilized up to their own completion because of the inability of the city to have an integrated planning and coordination system for expenditure. And we're worried about that. You can't be given a grant, for instance. There's one that is called urban human settlement, something around that about the housing. You have that ground. You have many people who are homeless. You are unable to build the houses, but the money goes back at the end of the financial year. Now that's a problem, and that the governing party that cares and is responsible can allow that state of affairs to sustain itself. So that's one of the things that when we do the deployment, we're going to say to the incoming leadership, this kind of a tragedy must be overcome. We can't allow it. It undermines the ANC. It weakens our resolve, and it makes our commitment to build a better life to become a farce. It makes it to just become a hot air that has no meaning when we're unable to do the basics that our people will measure us on, whether or not we can really live up to the task of building a better life for them. What happened to the report about the fate of the mayor? You recall in the last briefing we had, we explained that there were issues that comrades wanted to engage the leadership about in relation to the nature of their cases, but also in relation to what the task team of the PwC had articulated as his own interpretation of the cases and what is probably going to be the period within which the cases are going to be lasting. So Comrade wanted to make a presentation, further engagement with the leadership, and we said, look, we have no problem with that. We must avail that opportunity, and that opportunity is ongoing. It was not finalized because of the meeting we had over the weekend. But all of us understood in the Provincial Executive Committee that at the center of what we need to do ultimately must be that we are not inward looking. We must take decisions that that which when we communicate to the public, the entire society is going to say, this meeting was not about members of the ANC. It was about the future of our city. It was about the future of our province. And that is why we felt that let's do a comprehensive analysis of the state of local government so that we can say, what are the challenges? Will we be justified to personalize the challenge to one person within the council? Our view was that is unscientific. That would be wrong. That would be petty, as somebody was putting it, that to do so would have amounted and clearly constituted to something that we can call is a manhunting and a poaching that cannot be justified. So the broad analysis that we made about local government is what empowered us to make the decisions that we've made. Will the incoming mayor lead until 2021? That's what we want to see happening. That's what we want to see happening. We want the mayor that must come in and hit the ground running and lead the municipalities, the two municipalities, up until the next elections when the ANC will make a determination on who comes in. It will be irresponsible on the part of the ANC to deploy anybody within the next a year and a half and expect them to be removed. That will cause further instability. We have to give certainty. These are big cities of our province. They are very prestigious to the ANC. We care about them. We may have taken a bit longer to take some of the decisions because we are a big organization, we are a caring organization, and we always want to be scientific and take along everybody involved when we must make profound decisions. And we believe that it's not late. We have made a correct decision, and we think that the two cities are going to take the direction that would not be an inspiration only to members of the ANC and its supporters, but most importantly to the people of KwaZulu-Natal. The rank and files in this country who may not be involved in any politics in this province, but who care about the future of their province, the credibility and the integrity of the leadership that they call their own mayors and their own provincial government, and of course their own organization. Who's going to run Peter Marisburg, Umsunduzi, and eThekwini? At the moment, you see, today we met with the comrades. We convened a meeting of the ExCos in the two municipalities. First and foremost, to do exactly what the ANC has taught us to do. That when you are deployed, you must be called and be explained the nature of your deployment. When you are redeployed, you must also be called and be explained the basis upon which the redeployment is going to be effected. And we did that in a dignified way, in the style of the African National Congress. And you might have seen comrades as they were exiting the provincial office. We were all smiling because we know that each one of us serve at the behest of our movement. And it happens at times, in exceptional circumstances, that we get so consumed by the responsibility given to us to the point where we lack the ability to distinguish between ourselves and the responsibility. And that is why from time to time the ANC must remind us which is what we did over the past 2 days when we were discussing a document on revolutionary morality, ethics, and integrity in leadership. We're saying, let's remember that this is not about ourselves. And that is why we adopted an approach that says, if we want society to follow us, we must climb the tallest tree. We must be ahead of society so that society can be inspired to follow us. If we're within society, society would be confused. Anybody will give directions when we all at the same level. And we think that the meeting we had this morning with the comrades was quite inspiring. It was quite good. We're very excited that these, as we expected, are cadres of our movement to understand how the organization works, and we're committed to support the organization moving forward. So the issue relating to the report that was done by a member of the National Executive Committee, Comrade Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, in 2013, well, I may not have, I may not be very intimate with the facts around that subject. I mean, it happened a long time ago. In 2013, I think both of us, we were not where we are today. We can check that, whether there was any decision at that time that implicated the current mayor in terms of what had happened in the local government elections that took place in 2011. But what the assurance I can give you is that the decisions we have made over this past weekend are not in any way influenced or impacted upon by what happened in 2013. They are purely decisions that have originated from a broad assessment and a comprehensive analysis of the state of the current municipalities under the leadership of the ANC, as a consequence of which we realized that we needed to make certain decisions. Look, Clive, you were saying that there are people who are going to complain and say this is a paging of leadership of people who did not support the leadership. You see, I would be very surprised if anybody will be going around with that notion in their heads. I'll be very surprised because the composition of the current leadership of KwaZulu-Natal is an expression of a collective view of different perspectives that were contesting in the provincial conference. So there is nobody who can claim authority over the current leadership. Nobody can blackmail any of us to any direction, because we have a leadership that was elected from two different perspectives, but branches decided that this is not about you. This is about the future of our province and the future of our movement. We will elect you according to what we believe will be helpful, not only for the ANC, but for the people of KwaZulu-Natal. So if anybody is going to say, I am being purged because I didn't support this leadership, that would be a reflection of a comrade who's unable to really understand the basis and the essence of the decision taken by the provincial. I can give you a typical example. Among the comrades that are serving in the two respective ESCOs, are comrades who shared a different view towards the conference. Amongst them, there are comrades who supported a certain view towards the conference. Amongst them, there are comrades who supported a different view. And they did that correctly because we're a democratic organization, and they can't be held to account for that. We all have views when we go to a conference, and that diversity is what helped the ANC to emerge with the most wisest outcome of any decision that it must make. So if you say there is purging, you would have a difficulty, because there will be a comrade that say, I didn't think that Comrade Mtumseni must be a provincial secretary. And there will be one that say, I thought he must be, but I'm also part of those who are recalled. How do you explain that? How do you explain that in the context of purging? Unless if, as I said, is somebody that doesn't make any effort to really think through the issues and the challenges we're dealing with and help our people and the ANC to move forward. Lastly, Ayanda raises an issue about the issue of redeployment. What do you think they will be good at going forward when they are not good at the moment? Look, the essence of what the PC said, you see, it may very well be that we made a decision in 2016, almost 2.5 years ago, and said a certain comrade must be a speaker or a mayor. But the experience, the lived experience from that period to today, tells us that this comrade shouldn't have been where he is. It's not that this comrade is completely incapable of doing anything. There's nobody like that. It's a question of comrade not being placed in the responsibility and with the collective that complement each other in terms of the qualities, the experience, and the attitude to work. So our view is that some of these comrades have been doing very well, for instance, as members, as councillors, in ordinary councillors. Some of them have been doing exceptionally well before as members of ESCO, without being a mayor, without being a speaker, without being a deputy mayor. So our view was that, but the current composition, as it is now, has not been able to be helpful to steer the two cities to the direction that is desirable. We need to dismantle that. And in the course of doing that, we will then find a way in which comrades will still be able to play and make the contribution in accordance with the experiences they've acquired, the level of expertise they possess, and what they've done in the previous response. There has not been any talk of anybody being taken out of the municipality. It was a question of saying, dismantle this, find a way in which we put in a new leadership that must take the two cities forward. But the ANC does not throw anybody. It doesn't have a dustbin for its own members. We usually say we only reject the incorrigibles, but really, it is our own desire that every member must be allowed to perform their responsibilities, and where there are difficulties, the leadership of the ANC must say, we believe that you have done your part here, but you must move on to do something else. So I think Comrade Mvela said that that's broadly how I can respond to the questions that were posed.
No, thanks very much. If your response, they are also educational to those who are not familiar with the ANC. So I think they help. Can we take a second round? I believe it's the last round. Let me start at the back for now. You are number one. And then I see a hand. You want to come back? Okay, you are number two. You are number three. Go, okay. The plotter, you are number four. Number five. Number six, Makosi. Then after this, I'm sure we'll all be satisfied. I'm sure there's no one who's going to be provoked by questions that are going to come. Let's start at number one, of course, at the back.
I don't know, maybe I'm old and deaf, but my question wasn't answered. One understands the comrades were briefed in a dignified manner and all of that today. They've accepted the decision. But who runs Durban until and Maritzburg? The 7 days are up and the appointments are made.
Okay.
All right.
There's two major cities to be run.
Okay. Wasot for not responding. Number two.
Okay. One of the ANC stalwarts in the Mozambique region, Support Sabaje, indicated that a few weeks ago he held a meeting with the ANC provincial leadership where the post of Sunduzi mayor was offered to him. I just want to find out whether that was part of his process of searching for new comrades who are to be deployed, or it was a separate one. Or have you already identified certain people, it might not be all, certain people whom you think are ready to be deployed?
Okay, if I understand, you are saying Sipho Kabache address. He was addressing the media, or who was he addressing?
No, he said it was in the media, but he said he's on record as saying that.
Oh, no, I'm not disputing.
Yes.
I want information from you because you have an information.
Yes,
so empower me.
Yeah.
He was addressing the media.
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
no, it's fine. Number three.
Just also off my colleague's question, is there a preferred candidate going forward for the mayor of the particular municipality? You obviously have to make that choice within a very short space of time. And again, is there a space that the mayor will be redeployed to? Is there a particular position within the municipality that you want to send it?
Right. Number five, Cox.
But I mentioned the issue of unity. Do you think this PEC decision to redeploy all your comrades will strengthen or weaken the unity of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal? Number two, please educate me here. The issue of officials like the city managers. If I'm not mistaken, in eThekwini, the city manager is still left with 3 more years to go with contract year. There will be financial implications if such people are moved. Will the ANC consider that, because you have plunged eThekwini and taxpayers into a financial hole, in that you may need to pay or buy out people from their contracts? And number 4, you said it took long for you to intervene, but we are assessing the situation. But some would say you already knew. There were reports from the Auditor General, from COGTA. There was no need for you to take so long. Now the damage is severe and it's costly politically and otherwise. And then, are you not undermining those institutions that you will be redeploying your fellow comrades to? If they fail in eThekwini and Msunduzi, like my colleague from the public broadcaster has said, the logic is you are good as your last performance. If your last performance was dismal, why reward me? Because by redeploying me, you say I can do something better, but my recent example and track record is dismal. The capital city and the economic hub have crumbled, and you are deploying your comrades somewhere else. Are you not undermining those institutions you will be deploying them to?
Okay.
My question is, what happens to Newcastle? Does the mayor there still go on his extended leave? Also, when the former mayor now of Durban, Zandile Gumede, was removed, she was removed just after she was arrested on these charges. Can you just please just give us details of what role did those charges play in determining this decision? And also, out of curiosity, what was the view of chairperson of the ANC, Zandile Gumede, in this? And I ask this because I remember the last time Mr. Mpuli said Mr. Matlaba had been part of the decision making. So can you also share what view did Mr. Zigalala take in this matter?
Which matter?
In basically saying you are redeploying these people that support municipalities.
Okay. That's one.
Are you is the ANC likely to do a cabinet reshuffle in the province, or maybe get some of the comrades from the provincial legislature to fill in Msunduzi and in eThekwini?
I think that was the last one. We can now hand over to the provincial secretary to respond.
Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I think firstly, let me start with who runs the two cities. The current leadership was called today to a briefing to be made aware that the ANC has taken a decision to redeploy them. They were equally informed that all developments and work of the city, the two cities, which is meant to be carried out between now and for the next 7 days, should not be disrupted. The work must continue. These comrades are councillors in the first place. They are not removed as councillors. They are going to be redeployed from the responsibilities of being in the executive committees, the mayors and the speakers and all of that. So the work must continue within the next 7 days as normal. And because these are comrades of the African National Congress, they understood that their service in the two cities was not merely about the position they occupy. It was a conviction that they were chosen to be amongst the few that must do the work of the ANC and the work of our people in the two cities. So there shouldn't be any anxiety from the people of eThekwini, including myself, because I also come from eThekwini, and the people of Moses Mabhida, in particular in Msunduzi, that we are now without leadership. There is a vacuum. There is no clarity about what happened between now and the next 7 days. All that has merely happened was that the ANC took a decision and informed its deployees. And of course, the process is going to be a process that, as we have said, is going to be evolved from today. We've begun with that work, and within the next 7 days, we should come back and say, here are the cadres of our movement who are deployed to assume the responsibility. So there is no vacuum. Well, I'm not aware that I saw some public, I think in one of the newspapers in Pietermaritzburg, if I'm not mistaken, I saw some quote purported to have been from Comrade Sipho Gqabasha. I don't know whether those were really his words. And I wouldn't want to appropriate those words to him merely because you were saying they were from him. And therefore I would not get into the temptation of responding to something that I've not been able to confirm with one of our own veterans. All I can say is that Comrade Gqabasha has not been offered anything. He's a cadre of our movement. He's part of the ANC. And whenever the ANC discusses issues relating to what needs to be done in certain areas, his views and ideas are always important because he's a former provincial secretary, and as you said, is one of our esteemed veterans. And many of them, I'm sure, might have not spoken to you, but Comrade Willis Mkunu, we sought their guidance and views about these matters and how best we can manage any kind of a transition we're entering into in order to ensure that there is less disruption, but there is we are delicate in terms of how we deal with those matters. Has anybody been identified to be deployed? Not as yet. The provincial officials are having their first meeting tomorrow. And please don't go to where we're meeting. We will have our first meeting tomorrow. And that meeting is going to be a meeting that deals with, for instance, what we do with eThekwini and Umsundus. It will be a beginning of that discussion. But it will be a meeting as well that allow regions to make submissions to concretize vacancies that we're dealing with. Who's the mayor of Herikwala? Who's the mayor of Ugu? Who's the deputy mayor of Newcastle? Who's the speaker of Newcastle? So that meeting is also going to finalize those matters tomorrow. So that come Thursday morning, it's all known who should be what in terms of the ANC's view in the various municipalities that I have made examples with. So there is not anybody who's a preferred candidate. Preference would be a function of our discussion. And when we go to a meeting of the top 5 of the ANC, you see there's only 5 of us, so definitely we'll come with 5 different views. Isn't it natural? That there will be 5 different views about on the matter, how to deal with this matter. And then because we are accustomed to the culture of engagement, persuasion, compromise, and consensus, we will ultimately emerge with what we would believe is a finest outcome, which combines every and all factors that would have been taken into consideration when each individual makes a contribution about who should be deployed for which responsibility. Will the decision that we have taken strengthen or divide the PEC? Let me tell you something that many people are not aware of because they were not in the PEC meeting. When we did the assessment, we used a completely objective tool. One of the basic questions that we needed to deal with, for instance, is to say, Comrade Ricardo, you were a mayor of KwaZulu-Natal local municipality. When we deploy you to that municipality more than 2 years ago, the financial status of the municipality was at this level. The audit outcome by AG were at this level. The quality of services on the ground and the public perception to the institution that we inherited were at this level. The evidence today is contrary. How do we explain that? How do we justify that within the period of 2.5 years, when we have ascended to that responsibility, there is a sharp decline on all indicators that were a reflection of a working municipality? How do you deal with that? And that discussion happens in the full view of the PwC and the ESCO members. And we say, Comrade Mayor, lead us in dealing with this difficulty. What happened here? So when the PEC receives a recommendation, the recommendation is completely insulated from any factional machinations that may be taking place somewhere. The recommendation is completely insulated from any personalized attacks or differences amongst comrades. It's cold facts at our disposal. Things have fallen apart. You were there. What should we do? So the PEC on the matters we resolved over this weekend, I can tell you, and this is not a public relations act, we were completely unanimous. All of us were unanimous that this is not working, this has not worked, and we need to take actions. And I'm quite certain that all PEC members who were in that meeting are not only satisfied with the decision, they are proud that we were united in identifying a problem, diagnosing the problem, and pointing to the solution. What the officials must do is to give meaning, concrete meaning to the solution in relation to what the deployment has to be done, how it has to be done to fill those. Well, we have never called for any municipal manager to be sacked or to be fired. We haven't done that as ANC. All we have said in our meeting, we have expressed a deep concern about what appears to be fundamental weaknesses in the work of some of our administrators or public officials. You see, let me give you an example of what we believe that should not be permitted, which is completely impermissible in this country. You see, you would have officials who are doing certain things that are wrong, and those things are damaging the reputation of the municipality, and there are no consequence management. The custodian of consequence management is a city manager or a municipal manager. When you don't act on the wrongdoing of your subordinates, you too are an accomplice in that wrongdoing. You too are an accomplice in that wrongdoing. And our own view was that we are not happy with how things have happened in some of the municipalities. But we know that it's not within our own purview to fire a municipality. That's not our job. That's a job of council. It's councillors who employ municipal managers. If they are satisfied with them, so be it. But we are entitled to our own views where we think something wrong has happened. And we believe that we must articulate our view because we have been able to use an effective and scientific instrument to prove that wrongdoing is happening here and there are no actions being taken, against those who are involved in the wrongdoing in those municipalities. So we think that COGTA and the councillors, where they believe we are right, they will act according to that, or they will decide what to do. But we can't prescribe what needs to be done, and we can't fire municipal managers. We didn't hire them in the first place, so we're not going to be responsible for firing them. We deployed councillors and mayors. In our view, the buck stopped with the councillors and mayors. Those are the comrades that for us must be accountable. Whether or not they are capable to enforce the same for those who report to them, that's their own responsibility. And we say to them, you can't come to us 2.5 years down the line and say, I didn't do this thing because I was sabotaged by my employee that I've employed. You can't tell us that. You can't tell us that. If the weakness is in the administration, what did you do with it? If you didn't do anything, you are part of the accomplice. And allow those who are above you to do something about you. Because clearly you didn't do what you were meant to do when you knew that the actions and the conduct of certain people below you was such that the work you are supposed to undertake on behalf of our people and our movement would be sabotaged. If you are quiet in the sabotage, even if you are not involved, if you are quiet in the sabotage, you are part of the sabotage. So that is the point that we have around those matters. Why do we redeploy people who have failed? I want to reiterate what I have said. We are not taking anybody outside councils. We have not said anybody must go out of council. All we are saying is that you may have been doing very well as a council, but you have not done well in this position within a council. And somebody must be given a task where we believe that there were difficulties. And I wish you to record very accurately what I'm saying when I say, in some instances, as we were doing analysis, the combination in the collective was not gelling in a way that is desirable. Sometimes you may find that you have a comrade who's a mayor who could have worked very well as a speaker as opposed to be a mayor. You have a comrade who's a speaker who could have been much more sharper as a person responsible for a portfolio committee, for instance, on water and sanitation as an example, or economic development. So it doesn't mean that anybody who's going to be removed from their current deployment have nothing to offer to our people. They have things that they can do, and they can do very well, many of them. The mayor of Newcastle, the matter around the mayor of Newcastle has not been finalized. The PwC task team that should do the work almost similar to what has been done with the team in eThekwini has not completed its work, and that work is still going to be coming back to us. Look, we are not removing Comrade Zandile and Comrade Monji on the basis of the court cases. If that was the logic, why did we remove the ESCO and the mayor of Umsundus? What is a court case against the ESCO and the mayor of Umsundus? There is no court case. The decision to redeploy and removal is purely and solely on the basis of our assessment of the state of the municipality, the performance, and what we think needs to be done in order to enhance the ability of those municipalities to provide services to our people. It's not about the court case. So I do want you to understand that it doesn't follow that therefore because Comrade Mahlaba is charged, is attending a court case, his municipality is at the same level as the municipalities we've spoken about. If that was the case, we're going to act as well on that municipality. And we're going to act in the same way that we've acted on the other municipalities, where we say, let's not personalize this thing, let's have an overhaul. Because the problem is much more broad, complex, and deeper than an individual. It needs an overhaul in terms of decision making. You see, Comrade Sihle Zigala, the provincial chairperson, Comrade Sihle is not only the first among the equal in the provincial executive committee, but he is also an embodiment of our collective views and ideas. When he makes a summary, remember the ANC provincial chairperson is not a facilitator in the meeting. He's a guider and a leader. He listens to the meeting, he directs them, he guides the meeting, and when he makes a summary, each one of us truly believe the summary represents the best views synthesized together from the collective. So it was part of the meeting that made this kind of a thing. He made the summary. He made a summary that says, unanimously we're united around the direction we must take, and therefore the direction we are taking is to do the following things which I've already explained. So anybody that may be going around and seeking to imply that anybody amongst us, including our provincial chairperson, is unhappy about the decision, is a person that is at work to implant a seed of division that is not going to be successful. That is an effort to implant a seed of division that is not going to be successful. We are very united on this matter. We are very principled. We are very clear that we have taken a decision that transcends our own individual desires and interests, but that takes into account and takes along the confidence of our people in the two cities. So Comrade Zigala, as I'm saying, is a prime of our province, is an embodiment of the direction that the province must take. And ultimately, the buck stops with him to direct where we must go. He has directed now, having listened to all of us, that this is where we're going. And anybody that seeks to isolate him from this decision will be doing work that is a futile exercise, because I don't think it will ever be. There is no decision or discussion or even rumors about a cabinet reshuffle. Nobody has ever whispered anything to us about the cabinet that must be reshuffled. We don't know what will be the reason for that at this stage, because comrades who are in the cabinet have been appointed hardly 2 months ago, and I think many of them found their footing. Others are still probably learning the departments, and I believe that those comrades must be supported and be given a chance to steer the provincial government in a direction that is consistent with the commitment we made in the ANC manifesto, that we're going to change the lives of our people for the better. We're going to address water problems, housing, and the creation of jobs. And we think the changes we're making in the two cities are also part of that commitment to ensure that we enhance the capacity of the two biggest cities in our province to contribute meaningfully in an important task of changing the lives of our people for the better, to address, most importantly, the water provision, housing, job creation, and of course the electricity and housing, electricity, as we all know, were the issues that were raised by our people. So I think broadly that is where we are as the Provincial Executive Committee, and I'm grateful that we've had this opportunity. We were very worried that as we were discussing in the Provincial Executive Committee, there were some leaks that went out, and some of the media houses were then running some stories about what we're talking about in the meeting. And I think what would have been unfortunate about that is only that some of the stories, narratives were run without a concrete and a context, a concrete information and a context. And I believe now that we've had an opportunity not only to be concrete, but also to contextualize our decision, to explain the purpose and the logic. Not only you, but those who would depend on you to be informed, to be educated, would be excited as they go to bed today that there is clarity provided by the Provincial Executive Committee, and that the PEC is committed to take our province forward. Thank you very much.
No, thanks very much, no problem. We hope that is all. We have covered all your questions. We thank you very much. Thanks very much. We have asked all the issues. Thank you. We are done now. All districts. All the districts.
In Yambos, also
It's a good one man.
No.